I'll call our PA directors meeting to order. We don't have an agenda. We're having a roundtable discussion. And what I thought I would do is ask each director what they had that they'd like to have a discussion around. So I'll start with you, Mike.
Sure.
Oh, yes.
Apologies. Although the agenda itself is extremely light, and as you've indicated, it's an almost entirely roundtable. There were minutes to be adopted that were attached to the.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can do that.
So I need to do it still formally.
Yeah. So I just moved the minutes from the last EA directors meeting to be adopted. Okay, moved in second. All in favor? Good, thank you. So if you want to start with.
Sure, thank you. Thank you. So there are three areas of advocacy that I'd like to talk about. Two of them we're well down the road on. So I'll start with connectivity. This is the idea that we would like to get our TNRD residents connected to the internet, both through cellular, so cellular coverage, but also the possibility that cellular coverage could work as a home hub as well. And the most recent is that I had a conversation with the CRTC. CRTC took the notes. Corbin was kind enough to review my notes before they went final. And that's part of the record that TELUS has to respond to in the Tranquil Valley. So that's the TELUS Tranquil Valley status right now. Also had a conversation with Connected Communities, the folks that came and spoke to us. And in our last meeting, we talked about identifying 5 areas. And we've been around this discussion a fair bit, so I'll just summarize. She said to me, we have privileged information that we can't share with the TNRD. We get this information from TELUS and Bell and Rogers, and it's protected information. If you would give us the communities or the general areas that you would like to look at, we can then superimpose that data on our records. So I relayed that to Jamie and Corbin, and we're just trying to find a way that we can resolve the exchange of information and stay ahead of the game on this idea of the cell towers, the potential for application with 5 cell towers. So that's the first one, and I just wondered, Jamie or Corbin, if you had any comment on that connectivity initiative.
Yeah, thank you, Director Grenier. Absolutely. I think that, there's a recognition that this is an important topic in terms of advocating for increased connectivity. I think, there's still some questions that are yet to be answered in terms of specifically regarding the cell tower infrastructure and the possibility of the TNRD holding that as a service and what that would look like. And I'm sure that Mr. Vieira will speak more to that. But certainly in terms of the advocacy relating to increased connectivity and those that were part of that meeting at UBCM with Connected Communities and the Ministry of Citizen Services would recall that there was a lot of conversation about the different ways that we can solve connectivity issues throughout the regional district. And so, well, yes, part of that is cell towers as well as hard connection to households. There's also a number of different opportunities as it relates to connectivity along highway corridors and what some solutions might be there. So certainly wanting to work with this group to sort of identify those key areas more broadly in terms of, where along highway corridors, what communities in your electoral areas, and then sort of determining what the best solutions might be for those and how we can work with Connected Communities to address that.
Thanks for that, Corbin. And just to add to that, and echoing all those comments, and I think this is an important issue that's been at this board table for decades now, both from cell connectivity and internet connectivity. And so I mentioned that because, at this point, the board has given direction that this is an advocacy role. I agree that, with Director Grenier, that there's potentially opportunities there for, if the board wants, for TNRD to get more operationally involved, but just a clarification that we would need to then bring that to the board to actually start pursuing some operational involvement. At this point, we have zero budget and zero mandate to do anything on actual work, even in terms of like consulting fees and things like that. So if we go down this road, and this is all good discussion, but if we go down this road, for example, to do a deeper dive into analysis of what areas should be prioritized, then we would also need to have the discussion of how to fund that, because there's currently no funding mechanism or service around that.
Just in response to those, I appreciate that. I'm concerned that we lose our ground if we don't identify very simply 5 areas. And I don't think we have to do a lot of detailed work. I think we just simply say, and perhaps among the EA directors here, this is my number 1 area in my EA. G, connected communities, could you look at that and see how that overlays with your information? They're waiting for us. The ball is in our court. And I don't think we need to go back to our board to say, this is the number 1 area that I think as an EA director is important to me for our constituents. It may well be if we gave them 10 areas and said, now tell us about, which 5 might work. That's keeping us in our place, and it doesn't burn up staff time. And is that kind of thinking that I would really like, if the rest of the directors think about it, to be able to come up with a list, maybe as early as today, that we can then send to to connected communities to say, could you look at this? What do you think of that, staff?
Through to Greg, and do we need to make a motion on this that it moves forward? I think at our last DA directors meeting, we did have a list. We did a fairly quick list of areas that we thought needed connectivity. So if we made it into a motion, it would probably move forward. Do you want to make it a motion?
I could do that.
Yeah, just to deal with the EA directors that have concerns over connectivity. Give an idea of where it falls within the regional district.
So the motion would be that that the EA committee put forward the following communities, and whatever that supplementary list is, to connected communities for further consideration for cell and internet connectivity.
Do I have a second for that? Okay, so how would you like to put the list together? Are you going to submit it? Maybe you could sit down and just give me the list after the meeting, and then
Sure,
go from there.
I would just simply say that the Thompson-Nicola Valley area is for Area J a priority, and I would almost suggest if we went around to each AEA director. I know Herb's talked about Brookmere, and we may be able to put together this list and
Right now.
now.
Sure, that's good. Greg, you had some.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to flag that the motion itself looks very straightforward, and I think as staff, we would be very aware of what was being asked for as soon as you build out the list of communities that you intend to put in those blanks. We did just want to flag for you that this would be for board endorsement. So it would go to the next board meeting with the minutes of this meeting for board endorsement.
That would be good. Lee.
I'm just curious, would it also just be possible to bring up a letter under new business that is going to be sent and it's not board motions and all that sort of stuff? Like if it's a letter that we're sending to connected communities, does it have to go through this whole process?
Through the chair, if if individual members wanted to write to the CRTC, for example, and say the board has endorsed me sending this, then a letter and a new business at the board meeting would be entirely appropriate for that.
But We'll, we'll just go around and, Director Grenier has his area, and Herb Graham has Brookmere. Any other directors? Okay. Trish,
Okay, so Highway 8 from Secret Garden to Petty Creek. Actually, I just sent you an email. Highway 12 from 6 Mile to the Big Slide, and Highway 1 from Bighorn up to Nikomin. There's dead zone. They're totally dead through there. And those roads are prone to slides and adverse conditions. And there's a couple of First Nations reserves along there. Thank you.
Director Hooton,
Mine's pretty simple, from the Nutsford Brake Check at the top of Nutsford Hill to Stump Lake Ranch, up to the Trans Mountain Pipeline on both sides of the highway. That's the end of my electoral area. Then it gets into yours, I believe, David, from Stump Lake on, so.
Yeah.
It's a dead zone. It's a high traffic zone, whether it be commercial trucks or cars or that, and the residents along there, basically, we're in a dead zone once you leave the Nutsford Brake Check. Thank you.
there's connectivity right to the end of Nicola Lake. So it would go from Stump Lake to the head of Nicola Lake for Area M for that corridor. Director Hansel, Yusuf, pardon me.
Thank you, Chair Laird. For Upper Clearwater, Area A, there's Upper Clearwater. I had actually taken this on as an advocacy for cell towers at the very beginning of, our office here. And I had agreed to pause this on my own because, Director Grenier and I had a discussion that it's better to advocate the CRTC and focus on one project at a time. So with that being said, I want to ensure that, it's all of our areas are looked at, not, specific, one project at a time, if possible. Thank you.
Director Smith, do you have an area that you would like looked at? Okay. Director Hansel, do you have an area to look at?
Yeah, just on Highway 5, just to the north of Avola and about 6 kilometers south of Blue River is a dead zone.
Jill, do you have any?
Has dead spots, Highway 24 from Highway 5 up to
Can you-
the summit, I guess, and Adams. Getting old, forgot my glasses, can't even turn on my microphone. Okay, so Agate Bay Road, some areas, Highway 24 from Little Fort up to the summit, there's dead spots. And the Adams Lake area, there's quite a few dead spots there too.
Director Morris?
Thank you. Just, Adams would have been on my list as well, pieces of it, as well. And then, Pinatan, oddly enough, pockets all over the place, where there's no cell service, and they've been repeatedly, pardon the pun, commenting about that for a number of years.
So are there any other directors have any other areas? I think we pretty well covered the ones that, that's quite a long list, so. Okay, we'll move on. I'll do one topic.
Yep.
Lee, did you have something you wanted to discuss at the round table today? No, your own topic. What I'm doing is letting each director.
Still a
Oh.
motion on the
Just-
table.
Oh, I've got a column question on the motion, don't I?
Yes, please. So
Yeah.
Director
Okay.
Grenier read the motion out earlier, and then we would just insert all of those areas that directors have listed into the blank spaces between. So, I've got about quite a few things.
17.
Jamie, if you'd like to.
Yeah, just so we'll review the list to make sure we captured our notes. So I have 17. So we have Tronquil Valley, Area J, Brookmere, Area N, Highway 8, Area I, Highway 12, sections of Highway 12, Area I, sections of Highway 1 around Nikomin, Area I, Stump Lake to Nutsford Brake Check, Area L, Nicola Dam to Stump Lake, Area M, Upper Clearwater, Area A, Loon Lake, Area E, Green Lake, Area E, Big Bar Lake area, Area E, Highway 5 between Blue River, Vavenby dead zones, area B, Agate Bay Road, area O, Highway 24, area O, Adams Lake North, I guess, area O, Adams Lake South, area P, and Pinnetan, area P. That captured everything that people brought up.
To the chair, it works when you get to Nikomin. It's that dead zone between
Bighorn to Nikomin, yeah.
Big Barn to Nikomin. So there's dead zones in between those areas. Once you get to the areas I mentioned, they start working again. Thanks.
Okay. I'll call the question on the motion. Oh, did I get a mover and seconder for that? For the motion?
Chair, I believe that was moved by Director Grenier, so if you don't have a seconder already, then Graham will do just fine.
I'll call the question on the motion. All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, what I'm going to do is give each director an opportunity to bring up something they would like to discuss at the round table. So I'm just going to go around the table, and then after we're around the table, if there's any more, if there's anything else the other directors have, we can start again. Director Morris, you're next. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of things. One is the Kamloops Airport Authority Society. Just wanted to provide a bit of an update because I have had the opportunity to be serving on that, and we had a another significant announcement at the airport just a few days ago, which is an expansion on the development of the airport. It's got a 60-year extension. So those pieces are good. The long-term sort of industrial commercial development opportunities now will move forward in a different way, I think, given this healthy expansion and extension of the authority over the Kamloops Airport Authority. So I think there was some good news on that one. My issue relates to, bless its heart, Crown land in general, and the interface continuing with the population encroaching into areas right on the edges of Crown land. And I am continuing to deal with danger tree issues. And the biggest thing I think we talk, I've been on this a couple of years at least on the board, the conversation around Crown land access, interface, and the crossovers that happen with that. I feel like we still have not made significant inroads with the Crown land agencies and how we can work together. The chronic answer is always the same. It's Crown land, it's nothing, there is nothing we can do, and yet trees are falling on roofs and people are tripping over things and can't get to where they want to go. So the need for an advocacy effort that's more than just sitting at UBCM, an advocacy effort that speaks to how do we get more Crown land officers? How do we expand that? How do we support that? And then how are we going to go forward with the interface? Because it's people and trees. And it's only going to grow exponentially over time with densification in our population. So that one, there's where I leave it. I really would like to see us focus and make some change over the course of the next year or so if we can move that bar at all.
Maybe through to Corbin, would this be an advocacy issue that we'd look at?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and through to Director Morris. So today I actually have a lunch meeting with directors, EA directors who brought forward specific issues to UBCM 2024, and certainly wanting to learn about how we can move forward on those issues and making sure that they're still a priority. So absolutely, this is an advocacy priority as directed by Director Morris. We did hear some things from UBCM, certainly from the Ministry of Forests, as to some different things that we might be able to look to in 2025. So happy to discuss those further and how to keep that at the top of the list for the new Minister of Forests with the new cabinet sworn in.
Okay, we don't need a motion for that. Yeah, they'll just move forward. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Yes.
If I may, through Chair Laird, to Director Morris, I just want to give an example to the EA committee. Where I live, just off of Shuswap Road, there's two boats that have been sitting in the water for months that are almost like they're sitting on shore. Part of them are in the water. So our neighborhood's been talking about it. When I've talked to T-Test, they've been talking about it. So I took it upon myself personally just to figure out how that works. And you wouldn't believe how hard that was. So I've talked to the province over and over again. They finally figured out it was actually the federal Coast Guard that needs to deal with it. They gave me information and numbers. I've texted pictures. I've called them. I followed up 3, 4, 5 times. Boats are still sitting there. Freeze up is coming. Like, that's what we're up against. So we try extremely hard to get these things done. And I know Corbin will, and we all will support it, but it's just sometimes it's like we're hitting a wall sometimes, and it's just so hard for situations like that. But we will certainly take it on. Just wanted to share that example.
And just as a comment to that, maybe the crane will go too in the river. It's been there for 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Thorpe?
Okay, so I've got a few issues. But would it be okay to switch
Just-
over to Jim first and then come back to me?
And
Because
what you want to do is pick out your one key item.
I know,
and
that's
then
why I'm
come
going to
back.
ask that Jim does his first and then we'll come back to mine.
Sure.
Would
that's
that be
great.
okay? Thanks.
Director Smith?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I basically only have one. I don't have a lot of issues, so. I would like to see the process for grant and aid for nonprofits and for the smaller amounts that we give out to food banks and all of those type of organizations to be streamlined. I just think that the application is too cumbersome. I think when we give out $500 to a food bank and ask them to give us a complete rundown of how they spent the money and where they spent the money, when in the past it just wasn't that way. And so I'm getting some pushback from some of the organizations, and I'm not sure whether that's legitimate or not. But I would like to see a little bit more streamlined process for the smaller amounts, and we can pick a number, anything under $1,000 or whatever suits the rest of the group. But to me, I'd just like to see that process streamlined a little bit more.
Through to Scott, would that be a policy? Look at policy and see what needs to be addressed?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Laird. Director Smith and I have had this conversation in detail, and I think it's doable. It does need to be a policy change because there's requirements in there that direct staff on how to do things. We need to have clear direction as staff of what the board want. So I think if we could bring this to the next policy committee, am I hearing you right, Director Smith, about this would fall within the discretionary funds
Yes.
budget, right? And maybe there's a way to carve out a portion of it that has criteria that the board can agree to that still ensures that we're doing our due diligence and
Right.
still is from an auditor standpoint or a financial standpoint that we're still safe. That's really
Absolutely.
the only thing, but
Yeah.
I'd gladly, I mean, it's too late now, but I do see a lot of, it's too late now for like Christmas is what I'm saying. But there's still a lot of directors in this group that there's things flowing through in small amounts, and some of those societies are just on top of it and they just have that information at their fingertips and it's just a done deal. It flows through, our grant writer comes to me, we sign off on it, it's easy. But then there's some that don't have that same capability. And that's the ones you're talking about.
Yeah, so maybe we need to do a better job at conveying that as, because I know I have some that go, wow, like we've never had to do that before. Like, I
Yeah.
don't, why would I have to provide 2 years of financials when I'm asking for $500 for a food hamper for a needy family?
Yeah, sure. I think maybe Jamie or Austin may have a comment as well.
Yeah, thanks, Scott, and through the chair to Director Smith, and Director Smith and I have had conversation on this recently as well, and I agree with Scott that, you know, if we want to review the policy, that could be appropriate, but I think would be benefit in the discussion here today is I'm gonna turn it over to Austin to walk through a bit more detail of our process, because I think, at least in some cases, in my experience, is there's a bit of confusion by those applying for the grant and Granted, yes, it's a different process than happened before because now there is an application form, but I do think it is a fairly straightforward, simple process. And we're not asking for a lot. So I think I'll turn it to Austin to talk about what the expectations are around it, just for this committee discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. So through the chair to the board, our application's designed in such a way that it's meant to ask mostly for information that these societies or groups should already have on hand. The one that we hear back about a lot is the financial statements, and for a society to keep its society status with the federal or the province, they're required to have financial statements that show that they're a society in good standing. And we don't want them to do extra information. We don't want them to change their financials or redo them. We just want that information that they would have already had to file with the ministry in order to keep their status. Another piece of that we get questions on a lot is a budget. So if we have, say, for example, a $500 donation that we're wanting to give to the food bank, what we would require from the food bank is a quick breakdown of what they want to spend that on. And that could just be as simple as, we want to put together 5 baskets. Each basket's going to cost $100 worth of supplies. That's our $500. It really doesn't need to be like a super complicated budget that's broken down and itemized. That's not what we're looking for. And we don't want to overcomplicate the process for these groups and make them do a ton of extra work. And then, so the group receives the money, it's approved, they do their event, they do the initiative, they buy the baskets, then they have that reporting that they have to do at the end. And that's the other piece of it that we hear on sometimes. We have made the reporting extremely, extremely simple. It's, I don't know how many of you have used Microsoft Forms before, but it's just a Microsoft Forms link that we send to the group. And it only takes 5-10 minutes to fill out. It's just like, what did you spend the money on? Did the project go like you wanted it to? Please sign off and say that that's what you did. We don't ask them for receipts. We don't want to see like proof. If they have pictures, great, but we don't follow up with them after and say, prove that you actually spent the money how you said you were gonna. It's really just about that final sign off from the group that tells us. And when we look at the overall process, we have heard from different people that it feels like it's a little bit confusing, and we're happy to go back and look at our process and see how we can make it more clear what we're expecting from people and make sure that these groups don't feel like we're asking them to do a whole bunch of extra work to receive those donations. Because ultimately, like the food bank, the societies, the legions, we want them to get this money, and that's what the money's set aside for. And we don't want to make them do a ton of extra work above and beyond the work that they're already doing to maintain their status and to put on these events in the communities.
So thanks, Austin. So to summarize, we think part of this is we can look at our process and make sure we're communicating more. If we can communicate more clearly around what the expectation is to not scare people off, I think that's part of what we need to relook at. Because I'm confident we have a fairly simple process, but understanding that that's not the message that people are getting. I mean, and I say that acknowledging that there is more steps than previous when it was just simply a check request and you hand over the check, but we also think it's just a reasonable, fairly easy amount of work.
The other thing that has caused us a bit of grief in the past was our forensic audit, which is now raising that bar. So sometimes when our auditors are going through information, they'll say, well, okay, where did this $700 go to? And if it said, say 70 Mile Food Bank, that's really easy, but the society names sometimes don't clearly explain who they are. And now the auditors are saying, okay, who are you giving this money to? Where's the sign off? Why, and now financially we're held responsible for that. So that's the trick. We got to figure out how we do that in a way that's simple for them and simple for us, and we are able to check the boxes.
Director Yuzoff.
Thank you, Chair Lear. Just sharing the experience on the same topic back in September, I had reached out to staff about the possibility of lowering the threshold for stringent application and financials and such. The feedback back then was that as Mr. Potts has mentioned, the documents that the financials that we request are nothing out of the ordinary. They should exist already just as part of their existence as as a society. So with that being said, back then I accepted the fact that everything's fine, then we'll just, keep things as is, and to communicate with the nonprofits that, in the future, unfortunately, in my case, the Legion had a first responder appreciation dinner, requested, they wanted $400, but they said they, got back and there was extensive documentation, and so I donated out of pocket for that one. But so for me, the experience was moving forward, I would talk to the nonprofits first and say, hey, if you have any questions at all, come back, and don't just not apply because you think that it's really onerous. So I personally think then, I think things are good as is, but if other directors, you want to decide on a lower amount, I will be in favor of that too. Yeah, thank you.
Maybe one of the staff could answer it. Wouldn't just responding for the, like, when we have a set number, say it's $500, all you have to respond is with your society number that is registered, a registered society number, and that's all required. That's all it's required for $500. You know where it went, and would that not work as far as satisfying our accountants?
Maybe you can go ahead first.
Through the chair to the board, when we look at the requirements that we have in place currently, part of it is the accountability that the board is looking for from these groups and the way that they're spending the money. And if the board wants to discuss the idea of maybe it's setting a threshold, $500, $1,000, whatever that may be, and having slightly different requirements for amounts that are under that threshold, and that's certainly something that could go to the policy committee for discussion. And there's probably a happy medium somewhere that we can find where under a certain threshold, it is easier to apply for those funds while still staying within the requirements of our auditors to make sure that there's accountability for the spend. And just as an also a side comment on Director Yusuf's comment earlier, the other thing too that these groups can do if they're looking to apply for money is reach out to our grant writer, Ainsley. She works with different groups across all the different regions and hears a lot of the common questions and issues that they might be having with the application process. So she's quite well versed in helping them to understand what is required and how to find the information that they probably already have on hand, but just maybe don't know where to look or how to provide it.
I think what we're looking for as a board is obviously a number, and I quite agree with you. We have to agree with that number, but make it very simple and easy for our societies to provide the information. And what we need to do is make sure the auditors are happy with the system that we've put in place. Because I quite agree that anything over $1,000 does require a lot more information of how it's being spent and all the information that we gather now. So if there's a possibility of having a simplified way of doing those applications that satisfy our accountant, that would be great. Scott?
Yeah, so we agree. We're on the same page. We just need some kind of an easy, simple motion just to put it forward so it can get on a policy agenda and get approved by the board.
Trish, did you have can you make the motion?
First of all, I was going to agree with you guys because I had a case where it was really simple. It was $500 to aid an after-school program, but they were required to have a budget. I mean, writing a letter saying, hey, this money is for after-school snacks for the kids, it seems like it should be enough, in my opinion. So I would like to make a motion that anything $1,000 or under doesn't have the same criteria, that we can accept a letter saying this is what the funds are for, and it doesn't require that detailed budget. Anything over $1,000 would require a more detailed budget. And that a letter saying, yes, we've got the funds, this is what they were used for, would be adequate if we could do that.
Could it be just a bit more generic because the auditor might say no, right? Because if it's $1,000, they might say, no, that's not gonna
Okay,
work.
so how do you mean more generic?
Could it just be that we take this idea back to the policy committee for recommendation to review small, like just something like that, where it's just more general but we all have the definition of, Greg, you probably have a better thought right now on what that motion might look like.
Thanks. Yes, I believe what the discussion that I've been hearing is that the committee would like to resolve that staff be instructed to bring changes to the policy, bring forward changes to the EA grant and aid policy to the Policy and Governance Committee and the EA Committee to simplify application requirements for small grants. And then that allows a significant degree of flexibility, which would then, having staff, of course, have heard the conversation that you've had today. They're aware of the kinds of things you'd like to bring forward, but that flexibility means that there can be a lot of, say, discussions with auditors about exact requirements and if there's anything that would cause concerns. And then when those proposals are brought forward to Policy and Governance and this committee, then that would be your opportunity to say either, yeah, we think this meets the needs that we were trying to identify, or else, no, you've gone off in the wrong direction and we'd like to
Okay.
give something more specific.
Would this come back to the EA directors before it goes to policy so that we can have consensus on it?
Absolutely could do, yeah.
Okay, then that motion with it coming back to EA prior to going to policy so that we can have final input.
Okay.
Thank you.
Austin, you had your hand up. Did you have a comment?
It can wait until the policy comes back once we've rewritten it.
Director Graham, you had a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just heard, I think I heard Scott say it's too late to do it for this year. Director Laird and I have both seen women and children in the lineup at the food bank and waiting to get some food to feed their children. And it's Christmas time. We can't wait till next year for last Christmas. We need to do something this year. So please don't say it's too late.
I can clarify. The policy is the policy right now. In order to change the policy, it would need to go through this process. So that's what I mean. It's too late. If we can get if the policy can be met, we absolutely, I see that all the time. I sign them every week. And I think for the most part, coming out of M&N, when you guys share those costs, we're getting those financials and we're getting those follow-ups for the most part. There's some things that we still need, but as the policy sits today, we can still do it. I'm just saying we can't change the threshold. We can't change the rules until the policy is changed. That's all. I hear you loud and clear though.
Okay, I understand that, but we need to do something for these people in the next month. We wait until this late in the year because we never know how much money we will have left in our discretionary funds. But we like the food bank to have the remainder of it because it helps them, the people that have nothing.
Totally agree. So if they can just meet the current policy and give us that information, we'll do it. We'll absolutely do it. We just can't, staff can't do something that the policy doesn't say.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
problem. The
Okay,
board
so-
needs this.
So I hear Austin say, if the food bank needs $100 gift baskets for Christmas, that might do? That sound right?
Yes, that would be totally fine for a budget. If that's what they want, submit an application, reach out to Ainsley, we'll get them set up.
Thank you.
And Jill, you had a comment?
Had a whole bunch of comments.
Oh, well, go ahead.
I would like to say that the motion that Greg came up with, I think would be the answer to start the process of changing the policy or not having it reviewed. Not necessarily looking at what we're doing this year. If we don't start now, we're going to be having the same conversation next year. So I would like to make that motion if. Okay, then I'll second it. Yeah, it was kind of floating around there. So, yeah. So I would second the motion, but I also want to say that, or do you want to do the motion before I go further? Okay, I just want to say that what I run into in my area is I have a number of groups that do really good work in our area as individuals who come together at Christmas time and they put on something for the kids, or we have a community Christmas dinner that they feed 1,000 people that they deliver the dinners to. And that is made up of a whole bunch of groups and individuals. There is no one governing body. So they don't fit under the fact that we haven't got one group that is supporting that. Is there not some way that we can consider having up to X amount of dollars, like $500, that they don't necessarily have to have financial reports so long as they present a budget and we know who they are? Or is that something that doesn't fit into our bailiwick?
No, I think that's doable. And I think that's exactly what the intention of this motion is to allow us to be flexible with something like that.
Just one other item. I know area M&N, we support 2 or 3, well, 3 right now, actually, with a grant every year for their different promotion or projects they're doing, like at the Fall Fair and the Rodeo Association and the Garlic Festival. And I just want to clarify, our policy allows us to continue giving that amount of money to them every year? Like it's just, and it's for basically putting on the events? Is that something we can still do? Yes, Austin?
Our policy does specify that funding's not guaranteed from year to year, but there's nothing that stops them from applying every year and for you to, as the director of the area, provide your support for it. And if the policy still meets, or if the application still meets all the requirements in the policy, sure.
Great, thank you. Any other questions around the policy we've been discussing? Sounds like it's going to move forward. Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
I just wanted to add something to Director Graham's comments or respond to that. Just for clarity, this is all good discussion and happy to go back and work on this, but our current policy as is, so just what I already said, I think to reiterate, I think there's confusion out there that it's more complicated than it is. So if anyone out there is concerned, like if you have an applicant, have them contact staff directly. The applicant can contact us and we can walk them through. It's a 1.5 page, like I think there's 4 blanks on the online form for them to fill out 1 sentence each. And then attach the financial statements that they already have if they're a society in good standing, and then the application is complete.
Great, thank you. Yeah, go.
So with that statement, does it mean that to get a grant, they have to be a society?
Yes, the policy is they have to be a
Okay.
society in good
So
standing.
if we as a director want to give a event $500, does that have to be a society behind that? What we're giving the money to? That's what we really need to clarify. And I would like to suggest perhaps that says something in that grant application that you must be a society or have a society overlooking your event.
Go ahead, Dustin.
So it does in the application and the policy note that the group receiving the money must be a society or the equivalent. We have some other groups that apply that are not technically a society, but like, for example, a Women's Institute is considered the same status as a society and they can also apply for funding. When we look at the requirements from our auditors and how we give out this money, I would say that the requirement for the group that receives the money to be a society or equivalent is likely a non-moving requirement that can't change.
Okay, thank you for that, Austin, because that really clears up a lot of questions that I get. So that's super.
Director Graham, then Director Ansel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering if I might get a copy of that 1.5 page form that needs to be filled out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can help explain to the people that don't do this on a daily basis, this is how to do it. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. We'll actually, if it's okay, we'll just send a copy to all the members of the committee
That would
and
be great.
a quick little description of it.
Director Ansel.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, Jill, we have a similar situation where a group does good things in Avola. And in the past, they've used the Community Association in Blue Rivers for their flow through financing, which actually the policy changed, saying that that is not allowed. But I clarified at that time that it could be a one-off and go to the board. And that was the way of getting around that. But if we are looking at the policy, maybe we could look at, is that truly the requirement that we want and not allowing the flow through financing? And then it also brings to issue if the Blue River Community Association is applying for $1,500 flow through financing, but then they're capped at $5,000 of their own initiatives in the community, but they're the only group that really does all of the community things for 2 communities. So it's a little bit of an anomaly for our area. And as long as every situation can go to the board and get approval, no problem. But what if in 4 years, that's not the case?
Through the chair, it'd be nice if we can kind of get some clarity when we adjust the policy accordingly. Like there's going to be some unique situations all over the region. So, and if we were to kind of share that as an example, maybe there's a way around that that may be able to work if the board sees fit.
Would it be best for me to put that in an email, those concerns, so that it goes to someone at the policy?
Sure,
Maybe,
send
yeah,
it
just
off
so
to me
that-
and I'll get it to the right person.
Yeah, okay.
Barb.
Thank you. Just from the perspective of someone who has applied for my share of grants with our local arts organization in Ashcroft, I cannot think of a grant body that we have asked for money for that has not specified you must be a registered charity or nonprofit. If you are just an ad hoc group of people, you cannot apply for funding. That is very, very common. Like I said, I can't think of one that we've applied for, and we've applied for dozens of grants. They all insist that you be a registered society or nonprofit or charity.
I think the amount of money that we're talking about here is, might be $500 or $1,000. We'll wait till a policy comes back. It's not like they're applying to have funding to go to a major project or something that they're working on as a local community group. This is quite a different, I understand what you're saying. And we wouldn't support a group either that wasn't a society if we were looking at a substantial amount of money. But what we're discussing is just some very small amounts of funding that really supports our different groups in the community. So is there any other discussion around how we're working with our grants? And we got our motion. I call the question on the motion. All in favor? Great, thank you. Director Thorpe, it's your turn now.
Now, these aren't problems. These are actually good things. So do you want me to talk about the fire trailer or legislative reform?
Whichever one is most important to you.
Oh, God. Okay, let's.
We'll probably have time to get the second one, but I want every director to have the opportunity to do their first one.
The fire trailer came up at the last meeting and we didn't have time to discuss it. So there, so there is a group, it's compiled of 5 First Nations and actually myself that have been working with Rotary Club of Steveston. And they have come up with this really cool fire trailer that I gave you all copies of for the schematics. And the idea of this fire trailer is that it will work for wildfire and that it will be a joint venture with one of the small communities in my area and 5 local First Nations. And so these trailers will go to each of the communities. They're being donated. This community will be the only non-Indigenous community that will be getting one of these trailers for free. You've got all the schematics for it. It comes with a insulated C-can. The idea is that these things can deal ad hoc wildfires that happen, and that we will sign a collaborative agreement between that small community and the 5 surrounding First Nations, so that if one area has a problem, that in theory, the other group can help them. And I'm really pleased with this because not only is it a solution to some of the issues that we've been facing as small unincorporated communities, but it also is a really good collaborative piece working with First Nations as one group. So just wanted to bring that up. Thanks.
Thank you. Just a question around if some of the other area directors want to actually take advantage of the purchasing one for their community. Is it a requirement that it would go to like the new, I guess it'd be wildfire community groups that have got together?
Well, in talking with staff and in talking with Steveston Rotary, the idea would be that they would have to have a society.
Yeah.
So that would be
Yeah,
the answer
so-
to that question.
Yeah, that would be part of our ongoing local wildfire protection plan.
Correct.
Yeah, okay,
Thanks.
great. Director Hooton.
Thanks, Chair Laird. I was thinking about this Crown land one that we talked about earlier. And that's not really the point, but I believe a number of years ago, the provincial government had a Ministry of Crown Lands that oversaw the 95% of the land in the province of British Columbia, and then funneled it out to the different ministries. And where that got lost, I don't know. But it seems like since that has happened, there's no accountability for anyone to go to if they have an issue. And I think about Director Hayward, and we just had our invasive weeds meeting yesterday of, okay, the private landowners do this, but the land next door, well, is it the Ministry of Forest, or is it this, or is it that, or and I think of Director Morrison, the issue at the Pritchard Beach. we just get a runaround. There's no accountability in provincial government. And I'd like to see us, you know, ask, I don't know if it takes a motion, that the province of British Columbia revert back to having a Ministry of Crown Lands so that we have one person we can go to if we've got an issue or the public has an issue, and they can funnel us to the right people instead of us doing the circle, you know what. And I'd really like to take this further than just talking about it, because this, we seem to go around this table all the time, and the residents do, and we get zero solutions. And I don't know what the proper channels are to take from here. I just wanted to bring that up after the discussion this morning. But the one thing that I wanted to bring up on, if you call it the main topic, but there's lots of topics, is EA directors, we get funneled with lots of things that possibly aren't in our mandate as EA directors, you know, and roads and highways are one of them. And same old thing with residents. We're about the only people out there that they have anybody to go to if they got an issue. You know, they don't have this person or that person. They know our phone numbers, and we get her from all ends, which is fine. That's why we took on the job. But I had an interesting meeting on Monday morning with the Ministry of Highways and Argo Road Maintenance over what is a road maintenance contract, and you know, what's all in it, what's expected of the contractor, and what can we ask for to have done. It really opens your eyes up. And I would really like us as in a future EA meeting is to bring the ministry here with a screen of, okay, here's what's expected of a contractor. You know, they all bid on these. And you know, if somebody up in Rose Hill Road's whining that the road needs graveling or it's too rough and we need a grader, and you know, what is expected of Argo, and or Director Grenier and his RAP project. And they actually, it was very interesting on that 3 kilometers of recycled asphalt that was laid last week on Tronquil Valley Road. And I took the effort to drive up there on Friday in the rainstorm to see the outcome of it. And that project there, you know, where they found this money, just like where did they find money to pave Del Oro after I asked them very nicely. They're sure like their subdivision paved and maybe River Road on Thompson River there, and they got it done. That 3 kilometers cost the taxpayers of British Columbia $410,000. Things cost a lot of money. You know, where they found that, I have no idea. Where they find the $1 million that they found to do Del Oro? But these are the things that are in nobody's mandate to do, but we always ask them for it. And I think it'd be beneficial in a future EA meeting that we invite the Ministry of Highways to come and explain a road maintenance contract to us, and be a very educational process. Thank you.
Through the staff, do we need a motion for that, or is that just something that we'll ask them to come for a meeting?
Yeah, Chair Laird, I think that Mr. Kelly could take that back, and it's not Modi anymore. It's now going to be transportation, and with transportation and transit is the new ministry. And it's I'm trying to think who the minister is. Yeah, and then the minister. That's right. So of just the infrastructure. Yeah. So we'll contact them and do similar to work that we have already done with advocacy with other projects. And if that makes sense, Corbin, is there any other? Yeah, we'll take that back and add that to the list and start working on that. Yep, we can invite them, somebody from transportation to an EA meeting in the new year. Absolutely. Thanks.
And Director Grenier.
Thank you, Chair. And following up with Director Houghton, if you think about where we've been and where we now are with the Small Water Utilities Fund, I'm wondering if we should try to parallel that with rural roads. If we call it rural roads, and we're trying to find some sort of special pocket of dough that is applied to rural roads that we can then say, hey, this road or that road or whatever, to Modi, use your rural roads fund. And I expect it'll be a multi-year effort, but I think if we kind of try to parse from our small water utilities advocacy into rural roads, because I think when I hear it's now called transit, That's where the money's gonna go. It's gonna go to transit, it isn't gonna go to rural roads. But if we start talking about the standards that they have to meet, the timeline that they have to meet it in, and then the other side of this is the rural roads fund or the idea of a rural roads fund, we might have some actual dough to put towards those standards. So that's just an idea for advocacy.
Is that something you want to add to the advocacy list to review and see if there's something we can do with that, or maybe through to Corbin?
I think if Corbin's chewing on that, he can come back to us with something.
I'm chewing all right. It's I think it's a great idea, and I think, you know, depending on what budget 2025 looks like, and certainly with our advocacy related to small water utility systems, I think there will be a lot of similarities depending on what the advocacy priority is. If we might be able to use that as an example, I will just say I think that our question will be as to who's going to be responsible now, because there is the Ministry of Transportation and Transit and the Ministry of Infrastructure. So I think it'll just depend on, and we don't have ministerial mandates, so we aren't clear on who's going to be directly responsible for what. Because maybe road improvements will now fall under the Ministry of Infrastructure rather than the Ministry of Transportation. So I think that there's just some questions that need to be answered from the province's side, once they get their themselves organized, and then we can certainly look to that as being a possibility.
Yeah. It's interesting, in my area, the local road maintenance company showed up, and I think they did about 3 or 4 roads with crusher chips. One of them, Midday Valley Road, that goes up beside the church there in Lower Nicola. It was, they put crusher chips, and they had probably laid down about 2 or 3 kilometers. And then they've gone over and they've done into Chutter's Ranch. They've done it kilometers here. There's about 3 or 4 roads. And I was wondering if that might be not part of the contractor's budget that they have to, and I don't know that. I just assume that's where the funding came from, because it wasn't a request that came from myself. But they did all that. And I was wondering if it was part of their budget to actually look at roads. Oh, okay.
That's a question I asked on Monday morning, and these extracurricular things. And I know Justin Van Eiderson, the manager of Argo, identified X amount of projects they would like to get done within this road highways district. And the amount came to, I believe, 10.5 million. And the Ministry of Highways, and Sam was there from Highways, said we allotted Argo 5.42 million for these extracurricular things. And it's up to them to go handpick the ones that they think should be spent on. So when you see something getting done here but not done over there, and everybody wants the world, they'd love to spend the 10 million and get everybody done, but they've only got 5.42 to spend. And that's over and above their contract.
Was that for the total length of the contract or for 1 year? So they had $5 million for 1 year to do discretionary. That's it. I don't think we need any motions as far as dealing with highways are concerned. Director Morris.
Just one final little comment on everything around this road strategy. I think we should incorporate the terms cattle guard strategies as well in our requests, because the most frequent complaint I get is exactly that, and don't seem to get too far on it. So and the idea of pulling together and having a more localized meeting with and Director Harton is well on that path. But while the importance of the provincial advocacy is there, I think some of the issues we need to be more boots on the ground here and pulling together on that. And yeah, like I say, let's just call it the cattle guard strategy. Thank you.
Your turn, Director Yusof. You have a topic you're going to bring up?
No, I have no updates.
Wow. You might think of one? I say you might think of one as we. Okay. Directly out, Jill.
Me?
Yeah.
Do I have something?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Well, that's easy. Director Graham, did you have anything you wanted to add to the roundtable?
One short comment, I heard Mr. Vieira suggest that you have to figure out how to pay for this advocacy. And I also remember Corbett suggesting that we cut the members who go to UBCM to pay for it. And I'm having quite a problem with that because that hits a sore spot. I believe that every director has a right to go to UBCM, and if they don't go, that's fine, we save some money. But to tell them, same as we do for FCM, would not be right. Thank you.
Okay. Director Onzel, do you have an item you wanted to add?
I do, thank you. So shortly, Justin's gonna pull up a video that we worked on with the TNRD, and I would say Sherry Madden was instrumental in getting this project off the ground and to where it ended with this video. But the concept of the video came about because we were approached by School District 73 because of a low enrollment in our school. And we came up with ideas of how can we promote Blue River, entice families to move to the community, and also to work with recruitment because we're having trouble staffing our medical outpost. Mike Wigley's was having challenges, still are, with enticing staff to come. And with new ownership, they're looking at building more family accommodating accommodations, so housing for the families, all with the intention of recruiting people to our community to keep our school alive. And so the school district also created a what is a one-room classroom, what is the Blue River Elementary School video, which is fantastic. And then this video went live yesterday. And so it was also grant funded to the tune of $20,000 from Etsy BC, which is BC Economic Trust of the Southern Interior. And again, that was an initiative that Sherry Madden took on and brought as an idea to me. And I just really, really appreciate it. So here's some time, sit back, relax, grab your coffee. See you in my new favorite movie.
You're a star.
Yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And now it's such a great resource for our tiny community to be able to attract our paramedics, our healthcare workers, our teachers, our employees, for anything. It's going to be valuable for the hotels and the small businesses, even for CN to recruit people to come and live in this town, Trans Mountain. So I just can't say how enough of how pleased I am that this video is available now. So thank you.
Thank you. I just want to agree that was a awesome video. We do apologize due to a technical malfunction. Only the video and not the audio of it was broadcast in the broadcast of this meeting. So for anyone who's watching online, I would just like to say that whole video is on the TNID's YouTube channel and can be watched. So yeah, that was awesome.
Thank you. I just have one item that I've been thinking about for a while. I know our staff always puts together long service recognition for employees. Prior to our big mix-up in 2020 to 2022, there used to be a long service recognition for TNRD directors, and that seems to have gone by the way. And I would like to see a policy come forward about how we recognize long-serving TNRD directors. There's a few been around the table for a long time, and I think they deserve the recognition of the time and effort that they put in for their constituents. So if but I would like to have a motion that we bring forward a policy on how we recognize long-serving TNRD directors. I'll make. Any discussion? Go ahead.
I was thinking of Steve Quinn and Renee Elliott and Mr. Kerslake. And I think between the bunch of them, there was 50, 60 years of service. And when we got inaugurated, they didn't get invited to the inauguration. And I know that there was some discussion about that. But I think that this motion would go a long way to addressing that kind of thing so that they're recognized for their work.
Prior to our, like I said, our big reorganization, I know I was a TNR director from 2003 till 2008. And when I call it being unelected, I got it was actually a picture of the Coldwater Hotel. There's one hanging in the office, just down in the next office down. And it was much appreciated. It wasn't a huge amount of investment, but the thought was there, and it was a picture from my community, and it was still hangs in my house. So I think we need to bring that back. Thank you. I call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? None. Thank you. Director Grenier, you have another item you wanted to bring up?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And it's our perennial issue of water and sewer and the small water utilities fund. And I think this is the year that we go for the jugular. We've been at this for a long time. We did hear that they've created a new ministry, the Ministry of Infrastructure. It's headed up by Bowen Ma, who was very responsive to some of the issues that we had earlier this year with flooding and emergency management. And we also had that resolution at UBCM. So we've pushed it as far as our community groups can go, the SILGAs and then the UBCMs. And I know that we had talked before about advocacy in January when budgets are being put together, but I'm just wondering if we should really push it over the top this time. Congratulate Bowen Ma for being appointed Minister of Infrastructure, and we'd sure like to talk to you about the Small Water Utilities Fund. There were 3 directors that contacted me this week about, now that this has happened, can we do something about it? Steve Forsyth from the CRD contacted me. I think he contacted you as well, Trish, and they're very keen. So I think that Mr. Hildebrand has talked to other CAOs about this common issue of small water utilities. So I think if we come right out of the gate with this, with the, presume for the moment that it's the Ministry of Infrastructure and maybe copy the Premier about it, get front and center on this small water utilities thing. I just want to keep this pressure going and get her done.
I can start, but I'd like Corbin to jump in on that because we have already talked to Brian Bedford, one of the staff members already, as we are leading up to this change in government, and we've talked to him a number of times. So Corbin, if you can just, and there's some things coming this afternoon at the board meeting as well that you may not be aware of.
Yeah, thanks, CEO Hildebrand, and thank you, Director Grenier, for bringing this up because it is an important issue, and I can feel like we're almost there. We have, like Scott mentioned, we have had a conversation with Brian, and so there's some work that TNRD staff are doing to sort of prepare a bit of a rationale as to why the TNRD needs the province to step in and fund the shortfall that we're experiencing with our small water utility systems. Again, going back to the fact that we don't have ministerial mandates, it's unclear as to whether or not the ministries have been restructured in such a way that now it would be the Minister of Infrastructure. My brief indication, and they haven't even been in for a week yet, is that the Ministry of Infrastructure will be for large scale projects, such as bridges and other things like that. And so I have a suspicion that small water utility system funding will still fall under the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, which it's now been changed to. But there are some letters coming to the board this afternoon for approval to be sent to ministers requesting meetings in January. And we want to make sure that this is top of mind going into budget 2025. We wanted to come out the gate a lot faster, but based on feedback from ministry staff, ministers are still figuring out where the bathrooms are into December. And so I don't think that we'll be able to move any quicker. But starting, January 1, 2025, we'll certainly be pushing this as far as we can take it.
It's interesting you use bathrooms and that involves water.
It was. Yeah, but sorry. Scott reminded me as well. We've also been in conversations with FCM, so the Forum of Canadian Municipalities, and they're of course interested in renegotiating the fiscal agreement between local governments and the federal government, moving away from grants and the majority of funding from the feds to municipalities being grants and having a more sustainable and proactive approach to funding municipalities throughout the country. So there's some changes in advocacy happening at the federal level as well when it comes to this issue.
And Director Ansel.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to bring up the email that I'm sure all of the directors have received from Jerry Lynn Kirk regarding FCM advocacy days. And she's looking for stories on small water systems and compelling reasons for her advocacy when she goes. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that and that I'm curious if we have a strategy of what our story is going to be to her.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that Jerry Lynn Kirk had reached out. So if you wouldn't mind forwarding me that email, that would be great. But I know Councillor Beppel is also on the FCM executive, and she's part of advocacy days, and she's reached out to staff at the TNRD and looking for the same kind of thing, a story and some background and rationale and to take to FCM advocacy days coming up in January. And so we've provided that to Councillor Beppel as well. So there's different approaches that we're taking for sure.
Just reading through that email, I think they were asking for directors if they have a direct story about their water district they share it and make it part of the lobbying group. So I know every director here probably has a story or something, an issue around water district. So if I don't know how you want to organize that, Corbin, would you like to directors to send you a quote or something that was
I think if Jerry Lynn Kirk has reached out to all of the directors as the EA rep for UBCM, I would be comfortable with directors sharing directly with her in terms of the information that you have for water utility systems within your own electoral areas. Because I think this is just going above and beyond the work that the TNRD is doing at a more operational level.
I just have a question. I know that we have local improvement districts that operate water utilities. And the concern is that TNRD operated utilities have access to funding. Local improvement districts have no access to any government grants of any kind. Basically, they have to run their water districts with however many connections they have. I was at a meeting at the Lower Nicola Water District. They had a request for the asset management plan for their water district. They had to be an engineered report that came through, and the cost of that engineered report on their asset management plan was $80,000. And they're really trying to deliberate whether or not $80,000 spent on a plan that would possibly get done and then sit on the shelf because they have no funding to do anything that's in the plan other than from their own water users. And it is a situation. Is there any way that we can, when we lobby, that we can include local improvement districts as being eligible for grant funding from the province or feds? Just a question.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Through the chair, some clarification. Some grants improvement districts are eligible for grants. Each grant is specific of who's eligible to apply. But I know from experience that other improvement districts throughout the TNRD have been eligible for grants for other projects, fire departments, for example. I can't think of one exactly that I'm aware of around water systems, but I think that policy wise around that. I mean, I can't speak to the specifics, but there is some grants they're eligible for.
This the water district in Lower Nicola has a water board. They have probably about 20 years experience of management on their water board. And they have never been able to apply or been made grants available for them in all that time. Basically, the only funding that they've asked for, and I have given them, I think about $200,000 from my community improvement fund, that went to putting in water meters. And they don't have the ability to do the same thing the TNRD does, as apply to the provincial government for money to put in their water meters. It's just not there. So I don't know how we can address that, but it's any of the local improvement districts have the same problem when they're dealing with a water system. So I would like to know whether or not we can somehow lobby the provincial government to recognize the other level of government that does provide water service.
Yes, we can. We can ask those questions as best we can and see if the province is aware. I know, Jamie, when we were talking to Brian Bedford, we brought up that and he thought they were eligible. So that's what we need to understand, I guess, is maybe just connecting that group with the province. Maybe they can get that figured out.
Yeah, if we can, that would be great help.
Okay.
Director Hooton.
Just one more thing. I know we're early into the project, and I thank fellow directors for supporting last meeting's motion on this agricultural plastic recycling. And I thank Director Thorpe that's taken it a couple of steps further. She's got involved with the Silga Group and with Geraldine Kirk and UBCM to get a broader perspective and a support province-wide for this. Are we too early into our mandate? I know we're just applying for grants to have that as part of our advocacy, what we want to see done down the road once this thing gets going provincially, because down the road, what I'd like to see done is like an oil filter, have the provincial government mandate a fee on every roll of plastic or baler twine or net wrap that's sold and the system pays for it and not us. And I think that was the concern. Could we start advocating for that now, or are we too early in the game?
Go ahead.
Thanks for that, Director Houghton. This board has been involved in advocacy on that issue in the past, but absolutely that's something that would be appropriate to revisit in terms of priority of, if it's a priority of the board to add to the list of advocacy topics. So just for the committee's awareness, the process that Director Houghton is speaking about is through legislation, the province can add products to the recycling regulation, which then mandates the industry to come up with a mechanism to deal with the waste product that's created by them. So when you buy tires, you see the advance fee you pay on tires that goes to the industry that's responsible for recycling tires. Presently, there's no such program for agriculture plastics because it hasn't been mandated by the province through the recycling regulation. So the advocacy work would be that agriculture plastics be added to the recycling regulation.
Any other, Director Grenier?
Thank you, Chair. So we've just put in 2 intensive days on budgets and discussion of budgets and targets and so on and so forth. I've been receiving some phone calls from constituents because I did post the budget consultation thing online. And I did direct people to some of our deliberations. One person said that one person who was a former director said that they used to get 5 years of projections on increases. And the comment was by that person that if the staff are projecting use of some of the reserves, then they must also have that information. And I haven't had a chance to talk at all to CFO Fox about this. But the point being made was if you're making a projection for this year and you're making a projection on use of reserves for 5 years, you must have some concept of where we're going on increases. And this person's point was, okay, you're deliberating in isolation a 9.5% increase this year, but are you deliberating 9.5 or 10.5 or 4.5 for the next 4 or 5 years? Because that might have some implication on what you're doing this year. If you knew that there was healthy, big increases coming in the future, you might want to do something this year, as opposed to if you said, oh, well, it's going to go down to 2 or 4%, then one more year of pain might be good. So I'm only raising this because the EA directors fund not quite 50%, I think it's 48.5% of the total requisition. And we don't get another chance at a budget like a municipality does. So in a municipality, the TNRD share the budget somewhere in the range of 10 to 15%, depending on the municipality. But for each one of us, it's 100%. And when you look at the budget process, I think CFO Fox is looking for sort of a solidification by the end of the year that we then approve in March. So as EA directors, whatever we're settling in on right now, this time of year, seems to be what we're going to be presenting and approving in March. I just raised that because as a finance committee member where there was 5 people on finance, and one of them is now an MLA, but I guess we're updating all the committees anyways. There doesn't seem to be that wholesome discussion. So if you're concerned about where these increases are going, I think we got to express that to CFO Fox sooner than later. I know that they took back the feedback. I heard Director Middleton say, well, come on, the staff are hearing what our comments are at the meeting and they're going to come back with something. But I think that staff are looking for some direction. And so far, the direction has been, yeah, what you presented is fine. So if 9.5% on average is fine, so be it. I'm just concerned that we're gonna hear something back from our constituents in the new year, but our chance to deal with it is right now. So that's just a comment and an observation, if you would think about that.
Chair Laird, if I could answer through Chair Laird to Director Grenier. So to your initial question of the former director, he actually sent myself and Carla Fox an email suggesting the same thing, that there wasn't a 5-year trend and all those things. And I directed him to the information where in fact, all of that information is in the report. All that information was shared in all of the reports that we've done, and he apologized and said, "I'm sorry, I missed it." So I've been talking to him about that. And so I just wanted to clarify that one. He's reached out directly to myself and to Director, or to CFO Fox, and we've given him the links and the information he asked, and he seemed to be happy with that and thanked me for pointing him in the right direction because he had missed it.
Thank you.
Justin's just pulling it up. I took a screenshot from the report that went before the board during the first or second day of the budget workshop that just shows that projection over the 5 years of what that global increase starting in 2025 of 8.5 looks like over the next 5 years, just for reference. Normally, right now, I would start humming the Jeopardy tune, but maybe not appropriate. I can just send out the attachment to everybody and we
that
can
would
all
be
see
great.
it.
Yeah, thank you. So is there any other business, Director?
Thank you. So on Tuesday, I attended a Zoom regarding legislative reform initiative that's being brought forward by some of the regional regional districts and local government associations, primarily on the island. And it will be we're hoping coming to the EA forum in February, and then it's looking at going to the local area associations in the springtime. Don Lidstone is involved in it, and they're looking at some of the issues with regional districts. Apparently, the legislation for regional districts came about in 1966. It has been updated for municipalities, if I'm correct with my notes, around 2003, 2004. But there haven't been any changes made to how it affects regional districts since 1966. He quoted as saying it was working in spite of, not with Local Government Act. So the main, let me just see here. There's a lack of power and jurisdiction issues for regional districts, and some regional district municipal interface are not working. So they're looking at getting this 121 legislative areas. They're looking at making what's working, what's not working, and looking at proposed changes. Just wanted to give you a heads up on it. I've got notes if anybody wants to read my chicken scratch. And the next update I should have on it will be in January, if you'd like me to bring it forward and let you know what's happening then, before it maybe goes to February or April. And that was all I had.
Thanks, Trish. Any other directors have any?
Thank you. I just wanted to share one really good success that our community has had recently, and that is that our medical outpost has been designated as a rural and remote outpost from a health center, I believe it was called. So that means for our community, we will now be getting a rural and remote certified nurse, which can offer a broader suite of services. And so over the coming months, Interior Health will be enhancing their communication with the community of Blue River, talking about this extra suite of services that are going to be available. And that is a direct result of advocating with Interior Health. And I'd like to give a shout out to their executive director, Karen Cooper, who heard the community's concerns and really truly worked with me and the community of Blue River to make this happen. So it's taken 2 years, but what we had did not work for the community. It was in jeopardy of being shut down. And now we are getting an expanded scope of services. And it was just really highlighting the concerns of the community and what was not working and coming to the table respectfully to find a solution. So it's a big win for Area B.
Now, that's an interesting story. It's great news. Yeah. Any other directors have any information they want to bring forward or share? Okay, I think we've done a roundtable. It was a good all-round discussion of, how do you like that? Anyway, I'll now adjourn the meeting. Meeting's adjourned.